This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell. Joining me are the Toledo Symphony's president and CEO, Zach Vassar, and artistic administrator and principal second violinist, Merwin Siu. We also have two very special guests in the studio with us today, Toledo favorite, pianist Frances Renzi, and the TSO's music director designate, Alain Trudel. We have an exciting concert that is coming up this Saturday. It's the first Mozart and More program of the season at the Franciscan Center at 2:30 p.m. That's an unusual time, I believe, for the concert at 2:30 p.m. 2 Mozart piano concertos and 1 serenade, and we're going to talk all about Mozart and the concertos and where they fit into it. But first of all, Alain, let's have a little conversation about what you've been doing since we saw you last, because it's been a while.
Oh, well, the summer was very nice, actually. It was not a nice summer in Montreal, but I was not in Montreal, so it was all right. I spent July in Europe, playing a lot, conducting a little bit, but mostly playing recitals and playing concert on my trombone.
Yeah.
And in Valencia and Barcelona and also in Firenze and Italy. So it's a great time. Then came back. I had actually about 3 weeks off, which I spent most of talking with Merwin and Zach about our upcoming next 2 seasons. And then Madeleine is coming up on 1 year, so we spent a lot of time with baby Madeleine and having fun.
Yeah. You were doing some house shopping last time you were in town.
Yes, yeah.
Did you find a house?
Well, we like very much Ottawa Hills.
Yeah.
And, we're just looking around. But, it's really surprising. Each time I come back, as I was here in April, then in June, and now in September, is that the downtown keeps changing nonstop. It's incredible. The speed to which things are going up. It's amazing. And we had this amazing concert, Music of Prince.
Yeah.
And it was, downtown was full. I mean, you'd think you're in New York. I mean, it's fantastic.
Right. I'm going to bring a little music here. This is one of the pieces being performed, Piano Concerto Number 21, the second movement, probably the best known. Now, this is all part of the 88 Keys Festival. You want to talk about that for us?
Sure. It's actually a wonderful celebration of the life of Dorothy Mackenzie Price, who was such a benefactor to the piano community in Toledo. And she was a lover of Mozart and a lover of the piano, and it felt entirely appropriate to honor her in the 4 concerts of our Mozart and More series with a real examination of the Mozart piano concerti. And looking back at our history, there were several of these concerti that the Toledo Symphony has never performed. And so even though you would think that somehow when we've had a Mozart and More series for as many years as we've played every Mozart piano concerto, there will be 4 new ones this year.
Yeah? Any on this concert coming up?
Absolutely.
But not this one. Number 6, I imagine, is a new one. Yeah, but not the one we're hearing right now.
No.
This is that beautiful moment. Of course, I'm playing the part without the piano. I hope you don't mind, Frances.
Not at all. It's beautiful.
This particular movement also used in the world of film for a long time. When I used to look at recordings of this, they would call it the Elvira Madigan Piano Concerto because it was in that 1960s. Was it a Danish film?
Swedish.
A Swedish film.
Swedish one, yeah.
About circus performers and ill-fated romance.
Yeah.
Yeah, go figure. I mean, nothing, it sounds like an operatic plot right there. Here's a little piano. But that brings up our quiz for today. We are going to listen to some excerpts of Mozart, and I'm going to give you multiple choice, and you tell me what movie they appeared in. Okay,
you can sense the apprehension in the studio right now.
You're all
Isn't
looking at me.
the answer
like,
always Amadeus?
Amadeus? Maybe. We'll see.
What is Amadeus?
It could be.
I'll take Mozart for 600.
Yeah. That's about what he was getting back in the day.
I mean, Kershaw 600.
He would have considered that to be
I'm sorry,
a
Alain,
premium price.
there are no Kershaw jokes allowed here. I'm sorry.
Poor Kershaw. Always left behind. We say his name all the time, but nobody knows, who he is. Okay, well, let's get started. I've got 5 different selections here, and you can first identify what the piece is. I mean, they're all pretty well known. And we'll let it play a little bit, and then I'll give you 3 choices as to what they are. Let me bring up number 1. We don't usually hear it in German. But this singer is so magnificent, I had to bring in this recording.
Was it German in the movie?
I don't believe so.
Oh, we're getting specific. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know who this is? This is Fritz Wunderlich.
Yeah, Wunderlich.
Yeah.
The best Mozart.
And the tenor aria, Un'aura amorosa, usually, from Così. Okay, your 3 choices are the movies My Left Foot, There Will Be Blood, or In the Name of the Father. Obviously, Daniel Day-Lewis films.
I honestly interchange the last 2 all the time.
Yeah.
Don't. There Will Be Blood. Is that the one that was like the Johnny Greenwood score? I think that's a lot of Brahms in that. So I'm going to say not that one. There is. There's a lot of Brahms quotations in There Will Be Blood if I'm getting the score right. So I'm going to say it's not that one, but I could be wrong.
Anybody else want to chime in?
Well, I'm going to try There Will Be Blood, actually, and then that massacre scene at the end.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this would be great music for a massacre.
Absolutely.
What do you say, Zach? What say you?
I'll go with In the Name of the Father.
In the Name of the Father. Francis, do you have any?
What was the third one?
My Left Foot.
I'll go with that.
My Left Foot? You go with My Left Foot? Well, the winner is Francis. My Left Foot. Okay, let's bring that down and move on to number 2.
This is usually my top score. 0.
You know this one, right? Mm-hmm. Francis.
Yes, I know this one.
I hope you know this. Probably, although, you may have moved a little bit beyond
it's the famous C major Mozart sonata.
The easy sonata.
Considered not so easy, but considered easy.
Yeah. I tried to play it. It was not easy at all. So your choices are, was this in Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters? Was it in Stripes? Or was it in Groundhog Day? 3 Bill Murray films. Ghostbusters, Stripes, Groundhog Day. This is obviously geared towards people of my generation.
I'm going to guess Groundhog Day.
He learns to play the piano, but I don't believe it's this.
That's why I'm guessing it.
I think it's Rachmaninoff that he plays.
Yeah, there's a difference.
I know.
Between the 2. Anybody else? You drawing blanks?
No. I'm drawing blanks.
Francis, you're correct again. It
Whoa.
was Groundhog Day. He does play this, actually. He learns to play this. I mean, it's just a very brief moment that we hear him playing this, having mastered the piano. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Nice fast tempo there.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's a little fast, huh?
Yeah. That's Pamina's aria from the Magic Flute. Was this in 3 different Nicolas Cage movies here? Was it in Con Air? Was it in Face Off or The Rock?
I am going to say Face Off just because I love that incredibly awful movie, and I just really hope that this is the correct answer. It is one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies.
So you should know if this is in the soundtrack.
I don't know that it was this particular recording in the movie. Anybody want to offer anything else? Or you you're going to let Merwin...
Merwin stands alone.
Yes. Well, he stands in the winner's circle.
Whoa, bravo.
It was Face Off. Indeed. Okay, let's move.
I'm sure it was John Travolta singing.
Adina Menzel.
You know this one. Marriage of Figaro duet.
I know the answer, too.
Ooh.
Okay. Was it Cool Hand Luke, Amadeus, or The Shawshank Redemption? It was only in one of those. Zach knows. Did anybody else want to say before Zach chimes in with what I'm sure is the correct answer? What say you, Zach?
Shawshank.
That's right.
Beautiful
Shawshank
moment
Redemption.
in the movie. Yeah. They steal a record player and the PA announcer, and they broadcast this across the prison.
Wow. That's one way to get people to listen to opera. Okay.
Well, they had a captive audience.
Yeah, so to speak. I lost my. I don't have my sound effect for a rim shot. Oh wow! I can play the harp.
You need the sad trumpet.
Yeah. We can do that. Okay. Now you know this one, obviously. Was this in Amadeus, Fame, or Ace Ventura: Pet Detective? Which was it in?
I think
Ace Ventura.
It's a trick question. It was in all three of those. It was also in the sequel to Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, which I don't know is part Gia or something like that. I know it had a title. I don't remember what it is. So that is our Mozart film clip quiz, and I think that we can safely say that Frances actually was the winner.
Yeah.
Round of applause. Round of applause for Frances.
What did she get?
Yes, what do I get?
You get my undying admiration and love from all of us.
But she already had that from me.
I think she gets tickets to the next concert.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. This weekend's concert, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Free tickets. Let's talk about this weekend's concert and talk about Mozart and the piano concertos. I mean, it could be said that, the piano concertos were for Mozart among his most personal compositions because he played them. He wrote them for himself. And oftentimes they were make or break propositions because he was looking to make a living as a pianist certain times, getting people to pay money for those compositions. So which one do we want to tackle first? You want to talk about 21 or you want to talk about number 6, the early one? Frances, since you're the winner, your prize is you have to talk first.
Let's talk about the early one first.
Okay.
It was written, he was only 20 years old. It was 1776.
Oh.
And he was writing at that time for himself to play and also for his sister, who was a very fine pianist. It's a very kind of youthful, carefree, happy concerto. It was unfamiliar to me, and I'm really happy. It was a happy surprise because I've really grown to love this concerto. It's really captivating. And especially the slow movement is kind of, I don't know if it was planned this way, but the slow movement is kind of has a lot of the similar qualities as the Elvira Madigan slow movement. It's kind of has a hint in terms of what is to come. It has the kind of underlying triplet accompaniment, muted strings, pizzicato, and a very lovely lyricism above it. The last movement especially is, I like especially the use of the French horns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, it was such a surprise. They come in, it's kind of like they interject this very kind of joyful, let's get the party started kind of feeling. And it's just, adds a lot of character, but the last movement's just kind of fun-filled and high spirits and great fun to play.
Yeah.
It's, the first movement, it's marked Allegro aperto, which literally means open, but it's very kind of outgoing, feeling of happiness and it's a wonderful piece.
Was this a happy time in his life? I mean, he was living in Salzburg, 20 years old.
Well, I think he was writing a lot for himself to play and for his sister to play. It was, and also another interesting thing I read about was that the piano writing is kind of, there are a lot of similarities to Scarlatti and Couperin, especially in the last movement. There's a lot of that kind of figuration, and I did read about there's a piece by Couperin called The Alarm Clock.
Right, yeah.
And in this last movement, he used a lot of the kind of tremolo effect, broken octaves, and it's very much like the Couperin alarm clock. So it always makes me smile when I play that part.
Now, I've always wanted to know this, and maybe you can answer this question, Alain. Were there alarm clocks back in the 1700s? Because I've seen that piece.
Yes.
And I've often wondered, Did like if you were rich, did you just hire somebody to sit at the harpsichord and then
Just wake you up.
Exactly. Yeah, sort of the anti-Goldberg. Right? Wake you up at night.
My gosh, there could be so many better ways to wake up than that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. That's one of those perennial questions that we'll have to run to Google afterwards and see.
I never had the time to look that one up.
Again, no
well,
rim
the
shot.
French, I don't. It just was like wake up clock. I mean, that was the literal.
Un réveil matin. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wake
Yeah.
up in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Mozart and the piano concertos in general. You want to chime in on this,
Sure.
Alain?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what's interesting about them is they, contrary, for example, to the violin concertos, the concerti, the violin ones, he wrote all of them in the same year. It was basically a tool for him to get out of a bad situation he had in his job and try to be a freelance soloist, which we don't think about that very often. But Mozart was probably one of the, if not the first freelance composer that composed music, not at that time, but at the end of his life, his last symphonies, some of his opera, didn't compose because somebody gave him, a commission for it. It just needed to come out, which is something that's kind of normal now if we think about it. But in those days, it was unheard of. So the piano concerti, for me, what's very different, they're composed through his life. It's kind of a diary a little bit. For me, it's like an artistic or musical diary of his life. Yeah. And we go from different styles. Like Frances was saying, the concerto number 6 is written, the time it was written is that little very short space in the classical era that was called Galante. And it was graceful, very graceful music, and which a lot of how do you say? We say in French, the petits maîtres, the minor masters of the era, like Wagenseil or Albersberg or people like that. I know them because they all wrote trombone concertos.
Yeah. That's right.
Or the brother or the father of, Yeah. So, but that era was quite well known because of the music was so graceful. So, but you can see Mozart through the era and through his life changing his styles. And in the 21st, the famous one we played at the beginning, what you see a lot in this one is the use of the wind band. In the orchestra, the evolution of the wind band in the orchestra, it didn't just happen that way. And Mozart wrote a lot of. We can talk about it a little bit later. That's why I put a wind piece in this program. Is that in Concerto Number 21, there's a lot of use of the winds as an entity, and not just coloring what the strings are doing. So, the reason for Mozart to being so apt and so good at this is because he wrote all these serenades, which was the music that you would have outside. You were making jokes about music to wake up, but there's also, you couldn't just put the radio and have a party, right? Or something. So you would have musicians playing outside, and usually they would be the wind musicians. So the serenade we're playing in this concert is the only serenade that was played inside.
Really?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Mozart and how he operated with these piano concertos. When he got to Vienna, they were sort of his calling card.
Yes.
Some of the great piano concertos were his bread and butter.
Yes, and what is amazing to me is in those the 2 years between 1784 and 1786, he was writing, composing, performing, teaching. It was like a frenzied activity, and he wrote during just those 2 years 12 piano concerti.
Yeah.
And they're all masterpieces.
Yeah.
And it's just a kind of an overwhelming to think of what he was doing at that time. I just wanted to bring up a little bit about the Elvira Madigan movie because I was in New York in the 60s when this film came out. And I do remember, I mean, the music upstaged the film. Nobody really remembers the film that much.
Right.
But everybody remembers the music. And I don't know how many of you heard of Sam Goody record stores, which were very popular in New York at the time. And in every store, they had a big placard in the window, the Elvira Madigan Mozart piano. And so many people that never even heard of Mozart became huge fans.
Yeah.
So
well, that was a huge marketing tool for them, which is why I have all these CDs sitting back in the library that say Elvira Madigan on them. Well, let's hear that wind band story that you were talking about. You're also playing the serenade on here, Serenade number 12 in C minor, which is a string-free serenade.
Yeah. So if you're allergic, it's string free for
Gluten
that
free
piece.
and string free.
Exactly. So what's interesting about that serenade, it's the only serenade in the minor mode that he wrote. All the serenades were always written in very happy and major mode and very, how could I say, entertainment only kind of music. This one actually goes deeper into it, and we don't really know why he wrote this serenade for wind that's a bit deeper, that's in C minor. But one thing that's really interesting about it is that all the string players at the time went like, "Oh, this is really beautiful." Like they don't have enough repertoire, right? So what happened when they played this piece? They lost the last page. The last page of the score was lost for quite some time. And one of the string players rewrote, they said, well, they wrote the last page for a string ensemble, and then they rewrote the whole thing with a last page as a string ensemble piece. And it's that's the story. It's such a good piece that even string players had an interest for it.
Yeah.
We're a picky bunch.
Yeah,
No, we're not doing that part. Are you playing it with the last page or no?
we will. This performance will feature the last page. Yes.
Yes. Good to know.
Yeah,
Because when it comes to Mozart and even the piano concertos, you don't know. I mean, some of the notes are there, some of the notes are not there. You look at the Coronation Concerto where there's half the left hand is missing, and I've always wondered if you've played the Coronation Concerto.
I have not.
Haven't you?
That's
You have
one of
not?
the ones I have not played.
Well, promise me when you play it that you'll just do like boogie woogie in the left hand, right? Because
I'll give that serious
you sort of have a little stride piano
Yes.
going on over there, because you can basically do whatever you want. I mean, I don't think the Mozart police are going to come after you. Or maybe not. I don't know. Elaine is looking at me like he's...
No. You just made me think of something, which is the music that's not written in the concertis. Is that Mozart, of course, always improvises cadenza.
Yeah.
Every cadenza is for every concerti. So that gives a lot of latitude and lots of liberty to each of the soloists to write their own cadenza, which
I
you're doing.
have done.
Yeah.
You have?
For both of these, yes. I remember when I first did the C major, and that was in 1986 with the Toledo Symphony. And this was one of the concertos. There wasn't a Mozart cadenza. And I tried a lot of the other cadenzas, and none of them really appealed to me that much. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll see. And it was such a wonderful experience. So when I did the C minor, I wrote a cadenza for that. And so this is my third opportunity with the number 6. So I wrote my cadenzas for that.
So you wrote the number 6 cadenzas, and this is the first time you're going to perform them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell people what a cadenza is, just so, in case they don't know.
Well, it's just kind of an elaboration of you take, 2 or 3 of the ideas in the movement and just kind of improvise and expand on them, or, I guess there are 2 different philosophies about cadenza writing, and one is that, it's a show off for the soloist, which it is in a way, but also a lot of pianists, I think, extend the range of the piano and their cadenzas and maybe extend the harmonic language, and it becomes a different composition. For me, I really wanted to keep it kind of in the style of the concerto.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it in proportion to the length of the concerto. And also my goal was to make it sound as seamless and as inevitable as Mozart concerto is. Yeah. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like a challenge. Are there pianists that just take it and run with it and maybe inject a little bit too much of themselves into those concertos?
Sometimes.
You're a conductor. Have you ever had to tell a pianist, bad pianist, and give him a whack on the fingers?
Not so much as pianist, but violinists. Sometimes I've had some soloists play something really, really modern and contemporary in a Beethoven concerto, or play something really modern in a Mozart concerto. And I don't know. I mean, it's not that I want to control what other people play, but stylistically, it's kind of bizarre a little bit.
Well, what do you do?
Kind of is jarring.
Well, it's like
it takes you away from the.
Well, yeah, it's like, you're in the middle of a nice ice cream and somebody puts like all barbecue sauce on it or something.
Oh.
Mind you, maybe some people like that. I mean, it's fine.
No, I don't think so.
But
that's a big no-no.
Well, maybe a chocolate-covered bacon, yes, but maybe not the ice cream.
That's different. It's a subtle difference.
But for us in the orchestra, cadenza, because you were talking about, maybe some people don't know what it is, of course, the part where the soloist plays on her or on his or her own. So for us, and if you do another quiz, you can say, what is a 6/4 chord?
Yes.
It's the last note we play before cadenza. It's basically like if everybody in the orchestra is going ta-da with their hands towards the soloist, that's a 6/4 chord. And then we stop, and then the soloist, sometimes, like you said, stylistically, maybe it could be some kind of, if you play back a little bit of everything in the concerto. Yeah. Sometimes it can announce what's coming in another movement. Some people like to do that. Yeah. Some people like to improvise their cadenzas also, but that would, some have more success, some have less success, but that's the moment where the soloists really shine as much as the orchestra shines in the introduction by themselves. Introduction, then the soloist plays by themselves, and then we all finish together.
Yeah. I finally understand what a 6/4 chord is. I'm thinking right now I want to take the Alain Trudel course on musicology, on music theory. There.
The audience does miss the ta-da gesture that he added.
They can picture
it. It added a lot. It added a lot.
Putting his hand out there. It makes a lot of difference. Yeah. Merwin, tell us a little bit more about some of the other stuff that's happening on the 88 Keys Festival. There are 88 keys in the piano, right? That's where it comes from.
Not when Mozart was writing, but yes, there are.
How many keys did Mozart have?
There were. It was 5 octaves.
Okay.
From F to F.
So let me get out my slide rule. That's what, 5 times
60.
Wait, 5 times 60?
No, 5 times 12, 60.
That would be quite a piano. Yeah. So Mozart had 60 keys. Frances has 88 keys.
But I'm only using 60.
Oh, you're
both the cadenzas and the pieces.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, that's another thing about the cadenzas.
Yes,
you don't want to go too high or too low, right? Mm-hmm. Outside of the,
the range.
Is there like they have those collars for dogs if they go beyond the electronic fence? Do you if you play too high of a note on the piano?
If I play too high of a note, it's a wrong note.
Yeah, we start playing again. Orchestra comes in.
Frances, how many of the Mozart concerti have you performed?
11.
Wow.
The 6th, which is the new one for me, will be my 11th.
Wow.
And I have performed all of them with the Toledo Symphony. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
That is very.
I want to play a little bit, actually, of a recording of you in recent seasons playing number 27.
Oh.
And we will go out with that, listening to a little bit of Frances Renzi. Excuse me. We will go out with that, listening to a little bit of Frances Renzi.
Maybe I should just change my name.
I think you just did.
We will go out with something. Hopefully we'll go out with something featuring pianist Frances Renzi and the Toledo Symphony Orchestra. The program is this Saturday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. Note the time, 2:30 p.m. It's at the Franciscan Center at Lourdes University, an all-Mozart program, the first in their 88 Keys Festival, however, only using 60 keys. But that was too long of a title, I know, so you're just calling it the 88 Keys Festival. We're going to hear piano concertos number 6 and 21, plus the Serenade number 12, Alain Trudel and Frances Renzi performing on that concert. I want to thank both of you for coming in and joining us on Toledo Symphony Lab.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Toledo Symphony Lab is generously underwritten by a gift from the estate of Barbara Garwood and is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony. You can download episodes of this program as a podcast by going to our website. That's at WGTE.org. And don't forget, give us a call. Leave your comments or your questions at 419-418-0012, and we may use them on air in a future episode. My thanks, as always, to Zach Vassar and Merwin Siu, and to our guests, Frances Renzi and Alain Trudel, our intrepid leader, for joining us today. I'm Brad Cresswell, and you've been listening to Toledo Symphony Lab here on FM 91.